Hello, how you doing? So, you want to know how I landed my first client? This is a little tricky to answer because I didn't start in product photography. So let's go back just a bit. So I started in glamour photography. I'll actually back up a little more. I started doing landscape. Even before that, I did landscape work. I did event photography for I did air shows and car shows, and I would just attend the shows and then post my work online to sell prints. So I kind of sold things here and there a little bit. Even before that, I was a college student. I took a ton of photography classes in college. As I took photos of family and friends for my assignments, word kind of got around. But it wasn't something that I took advantage of because I didn't love photographing family wedding babies. Wasn't really my thing. So while I turned down most of that, the association of me plus photography started to form. That probably helped me down the road as I started doing that event work that I mentioned, and then eventually glamour photography. I did glamour photography under Sue Bryce, and I followed her program to the letter, and that's actually how I started my business and got my first paying clients. Was actually following clients like that wasn't through school and was a intention under a business name. Okay, so that was how I did it. Was I followed her program, and she had a lot of networking, social media, just putting yourself out there, and I just did what she had us do, all while working a full-time graveyard job. Without going into too many details, depression had me quitting my full-time graveyard job and booking a 30-day long trip through Europe. So, knowing that I would come home broke and with nothing lined up, I kind of got terrified, and I started booking things in advance and got things lined up for when I returned, out of fear of completely effing up my life. So I put together this model call, which I dubbed 10 and 10. It's 10 models in 10 days, and I got them all booked and lined up before I even left for my trip. So I had it all set up with like a nice buffer to veg out upon returning, because 30-day trip through Europe was gonna take something out of me. I was totally certain of that. So I made sure I had a couple weeks to veg out, and then I started the booking dates, and I had all of them filled before I even left. So I could relax knowing that at least when I came home, there was work waiting for me, so I couldn't veg out too hard into a pit of despair. So that was the plan. So that all happened, and then from there I just kept the ball rolling, and I continued the networking that I kind of learned through the program and just through putting myself out there in my community. Doing this, I got a client through a networking group, a local networking group, and they wanted to do the glamour photos that I was offering at the time, but they wanted them for their business. So enter my first branding client. I was so excited. After that person left, I was just thrilled with that type of work that I was like, there's something to this. I need to start paying attention. So I slowly started to pivot a little bit towards that, and I pivoted even harder as soon as another client from a different networking group, another local one, wanted me to photograph their products. Now, at the time, I was terrified of this because I had never done that, and I didn't know if I would be any good at it or if I even cared to be good at it. So I just said yes to see what happens, and obviously I cared. So from there, it took me about a year to completely pivot away from glamour, because while that was a great way to get started under someone else's like program and to learn a lot about lighting and posing, and to learn a lot about putting myself out there as a photographer, I wanted to pivot away from that type of work because my heart wasn't in that as much as it was in this. So I pivoted to brand and business photography, and in a pretty short time after that, I started pivoting more and more towards product because I loved that even more. So now that we have a little bit of backstory, how did I land my first client? Well, my first glamour client was by following Sue Bryce, right? I was in her program at the time, and I followed every day, week, actionable item as I could, as close as I could, while working a graveyard job. I did all of that, and through her program, there's a lot of client acquisition stuff. That's how I got my first client. Most of it was, if I can remember, a lot of networking in person and online, right? Social media was still part of her plan. And also a lot of model calls and gift vouchers. She was really big on the gift vouchers at the time. And so that's also what I did. I would put myself out there. I'd make these beautiful gift vouchers and give them to people at either networking events or just when I was about town. I would have them in with me wherever I went. I remember going to an event, a First Friday or something, and we were all hanging out downtown, and I just saw this stranger and I was like, I want to photograph that stranger. So I walked up to them and I gave them a gift voucher. Things like that, really putting myself out there. So that was how I got my first glamour client. Now my first branding client was through networking groups, and then my first product client was also through networking groups. Completely different groups, but networking groups nonetheless. So the short answer is networking. I would hand out gift vouchers, brochures, business cards, and then later on I found a networking group that I really enjoyed and they enjoyed me, and we worked out an agreement. And that agreement had me doing event photography, which put me in front of all these business people all of the time, very regularly for a few years. And that was an excellent transaction for us at the time. It's not something that would benefit me today, but it's definitely something that benefited me when I was starting. So I'm grateful for that. I also changed my handouts from the gift vouchers and whatever to, I think it was a trifold, I could be wrong. And it had, my contact info, it had examples of my work, etc. But it also had actionable, resourceful information on it. So for example, I think I had it where, I don't remember the exacts, I'd have to look it up, but it was like a list of content ideas of things to take photos of for your business, to help you market your business. So content, photography ideas that someone who is doing it themselves can take advantage of and someone who's hiring out can take advantage of. This was really great because it gave the person a reason to hold on to my information, right? Because it was giving them something of value that they can utilize even if they're not going to hire me. So while all of that was years ago, I still benefit from all of that networking to this day because networking is a long game. And now my clients are not just local anymore. They are from all over. So I'm found more through Google search, which leads them to my website, word of mouth, and of course social media. So for word of mouth, you have people that I've made friends with online through online networking groups, which expands my reach. And those people work with other people, or they are affiliates that work with companies that need photography. And so my name comes up in those circles, which is actually how I found one of my longer standing clients. So it's pretty cool. And then social media is, of course, social media. We're all aware of it. At the time, my biggest thing was Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. And that's because stories and reels weren't out yet. As soon as stories came out, I pivoted from Snapchat to stories, and I haven't really looked back. Reels, I would say, for me, don't garnish like a whole bunch of new clientele, but they do help, I think, the ones that are already paying attention. And they are also just fun. I think I use them more of a creative outlet than a marketing one. But, personally, word of mouth is my favorite way to get new leads because they already have the expectations set, right? Because someone else is already talking to them about their experience of working with me. And they typically are higher paying clients, and they usually turn into long-lasting relationships, which then lead to more of the same. So word of mouth is kind of my favorite, and I think it's a lot of people's favorite. I hope that was helpful. I have a difficult time answering these types of questions sometimes because my photography journey isn't clear-cut. It has a very long and messy beginning. I started learning photography in 2008. I got my business license in, I think, 2014, and here we are like 10 years later. So it's just been a really long and messy journey. If you watch this whole video, then thank you truly. I hope you subscribe and stick around, and I will see you in the next one.